Welcome, welcome. Talk about it. We're actually, this season, it was a time when there were a lot of miracles going on, and Rebbe pointed out miracles that were happening. It was the end of the Cold War with Russia, and it was during the Gulf War, when a lot of things were happening. Many people were scared. The Rebbe was actually pointing out how these are all miracles that were predicted for the miracles for the times of the future. So instead of seeing things as scary or unknown or what's going to be, the drama and the trauma that the media wants to put everything in, the Rebbe was showing how everything was pre-predicted as good things coming about, all for the good of our society, for the world, for the Jewish people, for everything to come out as times of Mashiach. And it was showing how exactly what's going on was predicted in the Medrash, in the prophecies, in the Nevi'im, the prophets, and etc., etc. So these are the sichot of the Rebbe that we're learning in this class on Sundays, usually at 12 Pacific time, 3 Eastern time, and they're incredibly different. These sichos are tremendously different than the talks that the Lubavitcher Rebbe would give from when he took over the leadership in 1950. So from 1950 until 1990 was tremendous sichot, the incredible vast amount of sichot that were amazing and life-shattering and life-turning and okay. But in 1990 to 1992, the last 2 years of the Rebbe, he took his teachings to a whole new level, a whole new way of teaching, a whole new way of seeing the world and seeing the times that we're in, and the way of learning was completely presented in a different way. So I'm going to read to you from inside, for instance. We're going to take something of it in, and we'll discuss it. So in Parshat Vayikra in 1991, the Rebbe talks about the whole idea of why we take out 3 Sefer Torahs and 1 Shabbos, and how that's it's to give us a lot of energy. When we take out the Sefer Torah from the shul, there's a new energy, life force that's being given to each and every person of the Jewish people, and there's something awesome when there's 3 Sefer Torahs being taken out. So that in that year, 1991, there was 3 Sefer Torahs taken out, and the Rebbe spoke about the significance, but really it has a significance for always and for all times. And there's something special. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm going to go into some of the points that I feel like spoke to me a little bit. Okay, so there's much more to read, and I'm just going to give some little highlights. And here it says like this. Yeah. It says God called Moses, and he spoke to him, and he spoke to him from the Ohel Moed, the Tabernacle. So what does it mean that he called Moses to speak to him? That's the question. And it's explained in Chassidus. This calling to Moses, to Moshe Rabbeinu, was an actual revelation, a ha'ara, like an inspiration and a revelation of godliness to Moshe Rabbeinu, so that through this he would be able to elevate himself and to come into the tabernacle. So if we look at the footnotes and look at the Medrash of what was going on, the history, the background of all this calling onto Moshe Rabbeinu took place on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is the first month of the first month of the biblical months that were given, that start in the month of Nisan. So there's one way of counting the beginning of the year from Nisan, and there's another way of counting the year from Tishrei in the Hebrew months. So this took place the first Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when Hashem revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu that there's a thing called Rosh Chodesh, and there's a thing called blessing the moon, and he gave him the first mitzvah of inaugurating basically the beginning of the month based on the moon, and there's a blessing for the moon, and there's a way of counting the calendar with the beginning of the moon cycle. So this happened Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the first of the month of Nisan. He gave him the mitzvah of sanctifying the month through the cycle of the moon. And this Rosh Chodesh Nisan, though, that was in The first Rosh Chodesh Nisan, where he taught him about this mitzvah, was in Egypt. Later on, when they built the tabernacle, the first day that actually Hashem called Moses to come into the tabernacle with this, what we said, Vayikra Moshe, this happened also on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, this Rosh Chodesh Nisan is happening this week in our yearly cycle of this year, 5783, is happening on Thursday. Wednesday night through Thursday night is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So it's a very special day. We're going from a month of joy, month of Adar is a month of joy, to the month of Nisan, which is a month of miracles. And of course, we always have miracles, but it's special miracles. Okay, it's a month where we can tune into the ideas of doing things beyond limitations, being able to have miracles within us, being able to go above and beyond our limitations and our boundaries of what we think we're limited and bound to, according to what we understand about ourselves, about our nature, about our abilities, or about what we have. So it's a month where we can start doing things in a miraculous way more. We can always do it in miraculous more, but we have this energy from above to be on a more elevated state of mind, of consciousness, of more miracles. So on this day, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, God calls Moses to come to the tabernacle, and that's after they had 7 days of setting up the tabernacle, taking it apart, setting it up, taking it apart, and finally the 8th day, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they set it up, and it was set for good until they had to travel on the next traveling. But this was the first time that they actually kind of inaugurated it, and Moshe Rabbeinu had to come in, and God called him to come in. So according to Hasidus Kabbalah, it explains this calling in was to give him energy and ability to elevate himself to a level of consciousness and holiness that he could come into the tabernacle. So the Rebbe says this is a teaching for each and every one of us in our service of God, that we can all serve God because the Torah is eternal. Torah's every word is important and is a message for every generation and for each and every one of us in every generation. Welcome, Edna Sarah. Thank you for joining. So the coming into the tabernacle is also a lesson for us. We're supposed to get this energy from God. When he calls us, he's calling onto us, he's giving us some energy, according to Chassidus, to come into the tabernacle. So what is this in our service of God? I was saying we each have a Moshe Rabbeinu or Moses within us. So we all have an ability to come into the tabernacle. And what does this mean? We're able to come to this level. It's the level of da'at. Da'at is, or das, is an understanding, an awareness, which draws down a unification, the yichud, a unification of the Or Ein Sof, of God's unlimitedness, God as he is beyond the world, miracles, not limited by the definitions of the world and the parameters and the rules of the world. So being able to draw down a unity of God's unlimited light down here below, that it should be revealed in our soul, as it is here, down here in a level of being in the tabernacle. And what's this level of godly consciousness that we can get on the level of God revealing himself in the tabernacle? What's that level? That level is, it says, Hashem says to Moses, I will be known to you. No'adati, or I'll meet you. No'adati means I will meet you, but it's also the letters of Nodati, I will be known to you. Meaning, the Rebbe says, this is a level of awareness of God, to know God. That what do we know about God? That he's Chayei HaChaim. He's the source of life. He's the life of life. Ein od milvado. There's nothing other than God. Al derech, like it says, see now, see, be aware, like see visually, meaning and be aware and understanding to a point that you can almost see it with your eyes, that I am ani. It says me, this is God. Even though this verse was speaking about in the future, that we'll all know that it's all God, still the Rebbe says, Koch said, this power, this ability, Yesh B'kol Nefesh Meisol, each Jewish person, each Yid has the ability, L'kasher Machshavto B'Hashem, to attach their thought to God, and to attach our thought so strong to God that it's so potently strong and attached, chazak, strong. It's as if you're seeing it with the eyes of your flesh. Like it's so clear to you that you could say it's like I see it, like I get it, I know it, I know that it's all gone. So the Rebbe says it's expecting us, and this is the Rebbe's theme in all these sichos of the last 1991 and 1992, to be able to really see things in a consciousness and a level of more of a vision, that it's real and it's tangible, and it's not just something that will happen in the future. The Rebbe keeps on urging us to focus on it in a way that it's clear to us now. And he says we all have the power to do that because we all have a Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, within us. We have the ability to actually sense godliness and make it real in our understanding, so that it's so tangible, as if we're seeing with eyes of flesh. Even though it fully says we'll be like this in the times of Mashiach, but the Rebbe says now we have the ability to do it now. So that's the newness of these sichos, the awesomeness of these sichos. That is demanding that we make it clear to ourselves what we're learning in a way that we can tangibly sense it and feel it in our physical bodies. This should be, our vision should be so clear that it will be similar and within the dugmat and somewhat a taste of, and somewhat and similar to the complete visions of Lasidlova of the times of Mashiach. Let's see the footnote, if I should give you. Okay. So the Rebbe says in a footnote, I'll bring it to you, that in order to be able to come to this level of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, and in each and every one of us, and to cope to this level of this, right, this awareness of coming into the tent of meeting where we understand God in a deeper level, the Rebbe says to do that, we need to have an arousal from below, arousal from above, meaning that God gives us a potent energy for it. How is this? Through giving us mitzvahs, giving us commandments. When we do a commandment of God, we do God's will, it elevates our soul and it connects our soul to God. And that's what it says. Vayikra Moshe, Aniyoko, Hashem is calling us. Vayikra means Hashem is calling us. God is calling us. And how's he calling us? He's giving us mitzvahs. He's giving us commandments. So the opportunity to do a mitzvah is a way of God from above giving us something that can elevate us and make us on a higher level so that we can come to a higher level of consciousness. So our eyes can open up and see godliness more revealed when we're actually doing God's will and doing the mitzvah. It helps us open up our awarenesses. Okay, so which is interesting because and it says, the rabbis say, honor my mitzvahs, my commands, which are my messengers. And a shlucha shel adam, so the messenger of a person is like it's like him himself. If you send a messenger, it's like you're sending yourself. So the mitzvahs are like God's command, they're like his messengers, but they're like God himself. And that connects us to God. Okay, so that gives us an elevation in our consciousness also, an awareness of God, and make things more tangible, more real, that we can actually sense godliness as if we're seeing God with our physical eyes. So that's the first thought I wanted to share with you. And then he goes on to this, the story where Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, came before God to serve in the temple and the tabernacle, but they had such an awesome desire to connect so much that they had what's called kota nefesh. They couldn't withstand themselves being in a body, and their soul went up and expired. Okay, so the Rebbe says similar something could happen to each and every one of us in our service. We're the sons of Aaron. We're like the students of Aaron. We're like his sons. And Aaron was the one who loved peace. He ran after peace. He sought peace. He loved people, and he brought them close to Torah. Okay, so they had this service of wanting to serve God so much and so fully in such wholeness that it was complete surrender, complete going out of themselves. Okay, but we, the Rebbe was saying, need to bring it to completion within a body, not to expire. So that's why the Rebbe says we're given this idea of being able to do things in a way of miracles, Han Haganisi, to go above and beyond. Each and every one of us has a service, ability to serve God in a way of being called into the tabernacle and doing it in a complete and whole sense, in a way of wanting to expire, wanting to just, leave everything and just be one with God. But what they were saying, what we need to add above and beyond what Nadav and Avihu did, is that we can take this, we can serve God in a miraculous way, a transcendent way, going beyond limits, but doing it in a very systematic, kavua, like it's consistent, and nitzchi, and it's eternal. Meaning we are doing it in a way that we're doing it in our body, in the limitations of the world, and we're combining the two, the above the world and within the world, miracles within the world. And Rebbe is going to talk about this concept more and more. And this is a concept that he doesn't fully explain, and this is not something that necessarily we can fully understand. But every time we learn this, and we learn another sikha, and we review it again and learn it next year, we can come to another level of awareness, depending on what we're going through in our life, of what it means to be living with miracles. Because we all have experienced miracles, and we all want more miracles. But if we tune into it and we learn about it, we can be more sensitive to the ideas of having miracles and creating miracles and making and living with miracles. Okay, so we're just going to follow inside, and everybody can take what resonates with them. Okay, so the chiddush in our service, the new thing that they're saying in our service, above and beyond what the sons of Aaron did. We're also sons of Aaron, we're students of Aaron, right? We're all descendants of Aaron, is that we're able to take these miraculous connection that we have and this desire to transcend our body and leave the body, but we do it within the body in a systematic way and in an eternal way. And he brings here something very interesting. Something that doesn't seem to make sense until I read the footnote. He says, he brings a verse that says, when we bring the sacrifices, we're supposed to bring salt. Any sacrifice that we bring, we're supposed to bring with it some salt. And it says that there's a brit kudalamelech. There's something about the salt that it's eternal, right? It doesn't expire. You don't have to throw out salt; it doesn't expire. So there's a bris that salt is kind of like eternal. Like when you want to say it's an everlasting thing, an everlasting bond or commitment. It's like salt. He's quoting a quote over here. So what is this concept of salt? In the footnote, there it says salt is something also. It's like a preservative that can, but it can also take things that were too pungent or too not able to, like let's say an olive when it's raw, you can't eat it. But if you add salt to it, right, you pickle it, then it transforms it into something good. So this is the concept of taking something that's bitter and unsustainable and putting the salt in it and making it tasty and sustainable. So it's the concept of transforming something that seems bad or seems unwholesome and not good, and transforming it into something positive and good. So out of nowhere, the Rebbe is bringing this concept over here of we can go beyond. What was the problem with the sons of Aaron? They could not contain themselves in the body because they wanted to just be one with God. The soul just really wants to be united with God. It doesn't want to have to deal with the physical. The physical's limiting. The physical is concealing God. We don't want to have to be in this world of concealment and limitations. It's the soul wants to just be able to leave the body, leave the world, and just expire and be one with God. So yes, there's a tendency, the soul would prefer that. It's easier for the soul and it's more pleasant maybe for the soul, but the unpleasantness of being in a body and being in a physical world where there are tests and there are cover-ups and we have to deal with the world and the limitations and the frustrations of the world and the demands of the world, and still be connected to God. That is the transforming of the darkness into light. That is taking the bitter and making it into sweet. So that's like the idea of the salt. Taking that salt, the salt makes it everlasting because it can transform the dark or the bitter or the unpalatable into something good. So that's our job. That's our job, and it's a transformation that we have here. So The only way really we can be consciously say, I'm not just going to avoid and abandon my responsibilities of being in this world and just live a spiritual entity and this not detach and not have to deal with the physical or the limitations of be bothered, is to remember that we have the ability and we have the command and the possibility of bringing miracles into the physical. And that's the idea of being able to transform darkness into light. And that's our job, that's our goal. So the Rebbe helps us do this with these sikhas. He gives us ability. You think the world is dark? You think the world is limited? Yes, it is. You think you're in a body that's limited? Yes, it is. But this is specifically the reason you're here. And the reason we're here is to transform the physical into a godly revelation of God within the physical. And this is given to us because God wants us to transform darkness into light. That is our job. So these sikhas is what gives us the strength, the ability, the stamina, the insights to be able to transform dark into light and bitter into sweet. So hang in with the Rebbe over here. Okay, so let's continue. So it's like this. Okay, it says in the Haftarah that there's a connection also to Anasi. Welcome, Edna Sar, again. There's a connection. We have the ability to connect to a leader. Anasi is a leader. And the Rebbe says this alludes to that each and every one of us has a service of God that we're elevated, we're uplifted. Nasi means to be elevated or uplifted, ascending. And Nasi is like he's on a, Nasi means Naso is on a high level, an elevated state. And Nasi means like you're going to a state of beyond your regular day-to-day regular activities of serving God. We're talking about an elevation of serving God in a way of miracles, the Rebbe says. So now this way of serving God through, like in a miraculous way, can affect our regular day-to-day activities that also our miraculous way of relating to God can also be done in a way of systematically within the world in an everlasting way and following the world's rules. Okay, so meaning like on a daily basis, the Rebbe is saying he wants us to be living with the consciousness of we're serving God in a miraculous way, but we're doing it every day consistently, eternally. So it's not just like once in a blue moon we get a great epiphany and we're like, okay, today I'm not going to be deterred and I'm going to be serving God beyond the limitations what I think is good or right. I'm going to be in a miraculous state of connecting to God and elevating and transforming every obstacle into a miraculously inspiring moment where I see myself transforming darkness into light. The Rebbe says, no, that's not just for once in a blue moon. The Rebbe says the goal is to take this kind of idea and this kind of attitude into our everyday life. And the Rebbe says that we have to add that in order to have this ability to consistently chazaka in a way of again and again and again, continually have this miraculous state of serving God in an unlimited way, not being limited, is alluded to when we take out the Sefer Torah and especially when they took out, that year they took out 3, but when we take out the Sefer Torah, we say Vayhi bin Saron, that when the Aron, the tabernacle was traveling, it said when the Aron, the tabernacle traveled, all the enemies dispersed, like they immediately ran away. So this is the concept, also the idea when we draw down something, some energy that's above and beyond, that God's giving us power to bring out like a miraculous kind of energy, going beyond ourselves, then we're able to transform things into good, transform darkness into light. And this is the concept of like when we bring out the Sefer Torah, the enemies disperse. Okay, and this the Rebbe says is also alluded to in other places. The word Nisan, which is the month of miracles, which is the month that we're starting this Wednesday night, Thursday. Nisan has 2 nuns in it. And the Rebbe says that this alludes to the idea of Nisei Nisim, miracles within miracles. Not just miracles, but miracles within miracles, which means it's the concept, what is it, of taking the nefila. Nefila means the downfall. It also starts with a nun, the letter nun. taking the nun, the downfall, and transforming it into light, transforming into an ascent. So the descent becomes actually part of the ascent, the going higher, and that falls into the category of Nisei Nisim of the Geula, the miracles of the Geula. That we're not just going to have miracles; we're going to have miracles within miracles. Sometimes we do see that, when we see something, we say that miracle had within it another miracle, and it's like all the miracles kind of intertwine within each other to come to one great miracle. Sometimes we can see it, and the Rebbe wants us to focus on that and see that. Now, here, the Rebbe gives a comment that it says that we're supposed to get rid of our chametz, right? We're starting to clean the chametz out of our house. We're wondering why we're doing all this work. So, and spiritually, we're trying to get out of things. Chametz, what is chametz? Chametz is things that are the ego, right? It's things that are separating us from godliness. And it says we're supposed to get rid of it. We shouldn't have it anywhere within our possession, right? We sell any chametz that we have, any leavened bread, right, which symbolizes the ego. We're trying to get rid of things that separate. What's the ego? The ego is the things that separate us between us and God, make God less real, make other things real. So we're trying to get rid of all those external things and make sure we don't even have it in our possession. All we have left, when we get rid of our chametz, is our matzahs. Matzahs are the goodness, the mitzvahs, and it represents the idea that we'll have in times of Mashiach, that Hashem is going to remove all evil from the earth. So God is going to remove even the evil inclination. We won't have a desire for evil. Everything will be removed. So it's like our cleaning for Pesach is like Hashem cleaning the world for Pesach, cleaning the world of any Yetzer Hara or any other things that are posing or standing between us and God. And he's removing all evil from the face of the earth. So I guess when we're cleaning, we can have that in mind. We're not just cleaning our internal chametz, our internal ego. God is also cleaning the world from anything that's covering and hiding his revelations in this world. Any chametz, any yetzer hara, any impurities, any evil. There's so much more here, but I can't do everything. I'm going to go towards the end now. I'm going to skip a little bit. Talks about Nachshon ben Aminadav, who went on Rosh Chodesh Thursday. We start saying the sacrifices that the Nisim, the leaders of the tribes, gave in the desert when they were inaugurating the Tabernacle. Each leader of each tribe brought certain gifts and sacrifices. So all really were the same, but each head of tribe gave it on a specific day. So each day we read that portion. And so the Rebbe goes into that to explain more of the significance of Nachshon, who was the first, he was the one who jumped into the Red Sea. And when he jumped in, then the sea split and all the Jewish people were able to go through. So he kind of like carved the way. And so that was also kind of a miraculous venture that he did. I don't know. Let's see. What time is it? 1:30. Okay, there's still a little bit of time. Okay, so I'll read to you a little bit about Nachshon. Yeah. Here. Here it is. Okay. So he had Nachshon ben Aminadav, the head of the tribe of Yehuda, who was the first person to jump into the sea when it was still a sea, and in his merit of just moving forward based on God's command to go move forward without making any, letting his mind limit him from continuing forward as God told him to do. He had what's called Messier Snapfish. He was able to transcend himself, give himself up, being willing to put himself in this dangerous position because he knew this was the right thing to do. So this is a service which is called the service of with all me'odecha, with everything that you've got. Like give it all you've got, the famous song. So there's levels of serving God. We can serve God with all our spiritual might. We can serve God with all our parts of us that we don't want to serve him with, parts that we do, parts that we feel comfortable, parts that we don't feel comfortable. But then there's part of us that's completely given over. It's called Messier Snapfish. It's giving it all you have, beyond limitations. This is the level of serving God in a way of miracles, like transcending the norm, transcending what we believe we're comfortable or know to be able to work. We're willing to go put ourselves in God's hands. What you want, we'll do it. So David connects that to the ability to give also charity and tzedakah in a way of going above and beyond our limits, being able to give more than just what's comfortable, knowing that God is dealing with us in a miraculous way. So not to make too many calculations, basically, and try to figure it all out, but to be able to go and give beyond of yourself. Now we know charity can also be physical money. It could be doing favors, helping people, teaching, just throwing yourself out, giving without the calculations of what you're necessarily going to get back. And this is the concept of tzedakah that's given for a kapara. We know according to Jewish law, there's only a certain amount that you're allowed to give. You're not allowed to give all, everything beyond. You make yourself, suffer. There's a 10% or 20% is the maximum. But however, and Tanya does say that if a person, let's say, needs to spend money on his health, you're allowed to spend as much money as it takes to heal yourself. And the same thing he says on spiritually, if a person wants to spiritually affect a change for something, maybe something, a sin they transgressed or something, you're allowed to give money for kapara to atone for sins. And that doesn't have a limit. So the Rebbe says there's a concept of giving money for tzedakah as a kapara, as an atonement. And through this, we can transform all negative things, transform them from negative to good, from evil to revealed godliness. And this tzedakah can bring close the Geula. This transforms the Gullus. It nullifies the exile. It transforms it into Geula, into a moment of redemption. And then it's like we have the splitting of the Red Sea, right? And we come into a place where the whole world is filled and covered with the knowledge of God, like the ocean covers the earth. So the biggest miracle the Rebbe says is going to be the Gulamity, the true and complete redemption, where at that time we will be able to keep all the laws of Pesach 100%. And the Rebbe says it should happen immediately, right away, and in a way of like that will already be in the third temple doing all the mitzvahs 100%, and already Erev Pesach, the Rebbe says we should be in the third Beis Hamikdash, celebrating Pesach with singing the new song, singing the Geula, being in this concept of redemption. And we should already be able to say, you redeemed us, Ge'alanu, blessing God for already having redeemed us. Not that God is going to redeem, but being able to be in a state where we say God has redeemed us. Thank you so much. Edna Sar's form dies. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to get the recording of this. And if anybody has questions, you can ask me. And there's somebody on Facebook, you can't ask me, I'm sorry. I don't know if I can bring you on camera, I'm not sure. No, can't join you on camera. So if anybody wants, you can ask me questions. Otherwise, you can send me afterwards. I'm going to post this on the YouTube channel for Beis Chana YouTube, the icon that has my photo. And yeah, and I hope maybe next week I'll fill in some more about these miracles. now that we're going to be starting this month of miracles, we can tune into them more and try to get more of that, these ideas of how to bring miracles more real and tangible, and live with this idea of not being limited by what we tell ourselves is normal and can work out and we're comfortable with and makes sense. To be able to go a little bit above and beyond takes a lot of inspiration from the Rebbe, and it takes looking into this more, meditating on it more, thinking about it more, seeing the miracles in our life that we have, seeing how everything really ultimately is a miracle from God. Even the natural world, the world of nature that we see, is all really a miracle. I see you shaking your head, yes. And the more we can tune into that helps us, I guess, see even more miracles, because the more we can see we're not limited. The world, even though it looks limited, it really is all a miracle from God. The creation is a miracle. A second is a miracle. So the more we tune into that mindset, the more it's easier for us to be able to not feel restricted or limited by what we think we're limited by. So I give you a blessing, myself a blessing. We should not feel limited, restricted, unable, defined, take off all our labels, all the things that make us think that we can't, or we shouldn't, or we're not able, or we are not capable, or not deserving. Yeah. And Nassar is smiling, big smile. And always, constantly, that's the goal.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Yes, well,
thank you.
That helps us. What? Thank you. Thank you for joining. And yeah, love you all. Good Chodesh. Be well.